Picture this. Your name is Dr. Kell. You start a new job working for a corporation known as the Alpine Signal Observatorium. In the dead of night, you arrive for your first day watching over and managing a research facility in the middle of an isolated forest in Switzerland. With nothing but a suitcase containing some basic necessities, you walk along a trail parallel to a stream of water. As you walk the gravel pathway, you just can't shake the feeling that something is watching you from the shadows. Eventually, you reach your new home for the time being. You make your way to the front door and notice the door is locked shut. Luckily for you, however, someone kindly left you a note informing you of the password. After inputting the 4-digit code and opening the door, you are met with a dark, trashed hallway that the previous occupant left for you. As you explore this facility, you'll notice that every room in the building is just as trashed as the hallway, littered with garbage piles, old food containers, bottles, and cans. Once you finally get settled in, you clean the trash off of your workstation and boot up the computer. You receive 2 emails, the first from your supervisor, Professor Leah, with an introductory email reminding you of your current occupational duties, and a second email from the head scientist, Dr. Bao, where he introduces himself as the individual to whom you will be sending newfound signals and satellite hashes. This is, at least up until writing this script, the plot of an in-development indie game titled Voices of the Void. I would be lying if I said this game didn't have a lot of potential. It nails the head of everything you'd want out of an immersive, slow-paced horror experience. Over the course of 40-plus days, you will steadily be led into a unique take on the extraterrestrial horror genre of video games. Of course, the developers of this title did not reinvent the wheel by any means, being heavily inspired by a similar game known as Signal Simulator. You'll notice very soon after booting up the game that Voices of the Void makes an apparent effort to look and feel similar to something created using the source engine. I should mention, this will, as far as I'm aware, not be a permanent inclusion, as recently many aspects of the game have been slowly desourcified. And though this will be soon replaced with visual and graphical overhauls, the familiarity of the source engine encapsulates strikingly well the classic feeling of being watched while alone in a source game. As a Valve fan myself, having made content geared heavily towards that crowd, I was enticed to give it a shot, after having heard of it from the very underground, not well-known content creator Joey Vsauce. And I must say, the sense of utter isolation you feel when playing this game for the first time isn't fully understood until you try it firsthand. The most unexpected aspect of this game, in my opinion, comes in the form of its ambiance, which does an amazing job adding to the feeling of impending doom. Aside from just the audio alone, the visuals are equally as unnerving. From the moment you are placed in the game, the immense darkness surrounding the player is almost suffocating, having almost nothing but the road illuminated by the street lamps. As you walk along this seemingly endless dark path, you feel a constant sense of urgency, and if anything happens to find you wandering alone, there is nothing much you can do to protect yourself. Arriving at base for the first time, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking that this place was abandoned. Coating both the inside and outside of the building, there is no shortage of grime alongside the walls, floor, ceiling, and even the roof. As I mentioned previously, there is also trash virtually everywhere. These factors leave a lot to interpretation, since, as you know, someone was working here before you. Now, either the individual left behind an immense amount of trash and neglected to take care of the condition of the building, or something sinister happened to the previous occupant, and what you were seeing is essentially the remains of a complete mental breakdown. Normally, I would feel that such a level of speculation is unnecessary, as it seems like a stretch to imply such a thing with little information, but of course, I would not bring this up if it weren't for clues scattered around the game. Throughout Voices of the Void, there are both full notebooks and pieces of paper detailing important information regarding what you will need to know in order to play the game. For instance, on the crafting station, there is a full notebook sharing crafting recipes for different items. There are even notes you can find that label different locations of interest, giving you info regarding its usage. Now that you are familiar with this aspect of the game, let's check out the bedroom. As you can see, this place is very disturbing. Walking in, you see silhouettes of what seem to be people once opening the door. Though, if you turn on the lights, you'll find they are just mannequins. Sure, this is creepy on its own and has its future ramifications. For now, let's instead take a look behind these boxes. Now, I don't know about you, but these look like the skeletal remains of our unnamed predecessor, which explains why the location appears so filthy. If you continue to remove the boxes away from the corner of the room, you will find a barricaded basement entrance. So, clearly with the excessive use of crates and wood to block this basement, there was an attempt to keep whatever is down there trapped or protected. To find what lies beneath, you will need to find an object to break the boards, either purchased or found. Making your descent into the basement, there are a few things of note here. One, the abundance of mannequins piled on top of each other, and the second, very obvious attempt to block something off. Once again, removing the crates, you will not only see a large brick sealed door, but also a notebook against this wall. This notebook is essentially your predecessor's journal, where they detailed not only their emotional state, but important aspects of their day. Reading the contents of the notebook, you'll slowly see this person's mental state begin to deteriorate. On day 2, they detail finding 2 planets, having consumed an MRE, taken a nap, and their recent purchase of a cactus named Vinny. On day 6, the effects of the lack of human interaction begin to set in as the page begins with, "Almost a week, I'm not crazy yet, but it's not that comfortable as before." Day 8 is similar. Frustration sets in since the machines within the facility do not allow for sending out emails, and though they express their sanity being okay, there is some sort of irritability or anger shining through. Day 13 is where things take a turn for the worst. This marks the beginning of the rapid downfall of our predecessor. According to this page, our friend here has found an unknown object carrying a very high quality signal, that of which they plan to process with the machines. Unfortunately, on day 14, upon listening to what I can only assume is the newfound signal, they had heard voices described as high-pitched, robotic echoing. Skipping ahead, on day 25, they log hearing footsteps at night, pleading with whoever is out there to please stop. It is also logged that their sanity has reached 0, with all of the servers at the facility shut down. On day 36, they detail trying out meditation to fix their mental state. On this page, they also detail plans to escape the area, not only implying that they aren't allowed to escape, but that Dr. Kell is now forced to suffer the same fate. The most important part about this page comes at the bottom. Quote, "Update, I see a bright pink light behind the mountains. I'll go check it real quick." From here, there are no more updates. The next few pages are completely blank, that is, except for page 24 out of 26, which only has the words, "Get out of here." Though I have only covered a few entries that discuss interesting details, there are a surprising number of days unaccounted for. Though many are still missing, as far as I know, 3 are scattered throughout the forest. Day 4, Day 14, and Day 41. Now, I'm going to assume that due to Day 14 being on both the notebook in the basement and in the forest, either the day entered bears no significance, or this is an entirely different individual responsible for the notes. Throughout these entries, you learn of an expedition presumably our predecessor decides to partake in. Here we learn of the Hole, which, while reading these, I am torn between considering them a joke or taking them seriously, as reading "The Hole made one deep bassy sound" has me understandably conflicted. But regardless, the Hole is a real location in the game. being blocked off by a door with a crowbar stuck in it. As far as I know, there is no legitimate way to enter it, unless you delete the door to enter. Since this is unfinished, for now, this is where the trail runs cold regarding what took place after day 41. Though we have gone through the strangest mystery, there are still oddities scattered throughout the forest that aren't elaborated upon. Near coordinates x-560, y300, you will find a dirt patch with skeletal remains. Normally this would be all there is to see, if it weren't for the fact that it is lying next to a metal capsule. Grabbing a shovel and digging it up, you'll receive a capsule full of radioactive material. Fortunately for you, it is useless for the time being, and though this item you just received isn't worth holding on to, it still begs the question of who this individual was and what events led up to them being in possession of such a lethal item. While you are watching over the skeletal remains of this poor individual, make sure to collect his head for the final mystery of today's video. From here, you will want to collect exactly 7 human skulls from around the map. The second skull, if you remember, is just located behind the crates in the bedroom. The third skull can be found near this gravel patch we covered prior. The fourth skull is found inside of this cave near Romeo. Number 5 is buried beside this rock near Foxtrot. And finally, for number 6, you will need to locate a pink crystal signal that triggers an event which I will let you experience on your own. Once the pink crystal event is finished, dig underneath the now moved object and you will find the skull. Now, for number 7, I will explain to you what we are doing. Essentially, if you take all 6 skulls to roughly x210, y530, you will find none other than Stonehenge, which is where the final skull lies. Alongside the skull, there is a note that refers to this location as Devil's Plains, telling you to leave and not come back. Ignoring the note's demand, once you've placed each of the skulls you've collected into the center of Stonehenge, they will begin moving on their own, eventually spinning rapidly in a circle. From here, a black hole will form that will begin pulling you in. As you fall into the unknown depths below, you will see various items falling alongside you. You will then land in what I would consider either hell or purgatory, as from here, there is nothing you can do to escape. No pause button, and no doors. It is heavily implied that there is nothing left where you once were, as even items from your base, including the ATV, are present with you. This is your final resting place. You summoned something you shouldn't have, and you are now trapped forever, where after time passes, the game will crash as if nothing ever happened. Though this is everything to see, there is, to my knowledge, no information right now regarding why this spot in particular is considered Devil's Plains. Obviously, something malicious is in control of this area, and with it being closed off, there was no interest in having it released. That is, until you decided to break in, perform a ritual, and subsequently end the world. As I mentioned, Voices of the Void has a lot of potential. And though I covered some major elements of the playable area, there is still so much to experience within the game's story mode, which is regularly updated with more and more content. Of course, I felt it was important that since this game isn't fully released and is only a demo, I should refrain from covering anything that would spoil the experience for anyone looking to play. If you are interested in downloading Voices of the Void, the download link will be in the description. I implore you to check it out. And while you're down there, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much to our amazing channel members, and another thank you to Floofygoober Zach, Anita Cube, and Funsum for purchasing the GLoWhNo consumer membership tier.